Well, we're going to have some fun today. Everything that's been happening around the Seattle Seahawks the last 2 months has been so serious. A legendary fan favorite coach replaced. Players are getting cut now. Our favorite guys moving on. There's lots of changes with the Seahawks, and not all of them have been popular. People have strong opinions. I hear about them. You hear about them. You see them. People are just fired up. So today we're going to have some fun. I was issued a little bit of a challenge, or at least I took it as a challenge this morning from my friend and friend of the show, Michael Thompson. We talk draft almost every day. And I couldn't help but notice over the weekend that there was a record number of Michigan Wolverines in the combine, 18 to be exact, not even including Zach Zinter, who was out with injury. What if, in trying to establish a new culture under former Michigan defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald, the Seahawks drafted all Michigan Wolverines? So I put it to the test, ran it through the simulator, and liked the results so much, I can't not share it with you. So we're going to have some fun with that. An all Michigan Wolverine mock draft for the Seahawks coming up next on Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
That's me. I am Dan Viens, former sports journalist, broadcaster, play-by-play guy, analyst, and now I do this for fun. It's a passion project, and thank you so much to all of you who have joined the project, have hopped along for the ride, subscribed to the channel and all the platforms, and helped the channel grow. It just makes it more fun for me, and it just makes me want to do more shows. I wake up a lot of days without a plan to do a show. Today's a good example of that. I have a list of things that I'm working on and kind of contemplating for the future. And some of them, the timing is a little bit better later on, so I hold on to them. And then other times, like yesterday, there's breaking news. Those are easy shows because it's just fun to react to them, and it just comes naturally. Those are conversations that I would have with friends anyway, but it's a lot more fun to record them for all of you. And then there are days like today. Woke up with a bunch of projects I need to get done today, a bunch of things around the house. Still not fully moved into the new apartment. There's things that need to be taken to storage. There's things that need to be unpacked and organized still. But then I had a conversation with someone, and then I had a thought, and I had some fun with it, and I'm going to share it with you. Follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever. Subscribe to that YouTube channel if you're watching it right now. Hit the bell for notification of new episodes. And if you want to hear audio episodes without ads, you can do that on Spotify. It is still less than $1 a month to subscribe, and some of you have taken advantage of that. Get in there now before the cost goes up. And what's the other thing? Oh, you can buy me a coffee or a beer. All those links will be in the description. And at the end of the show, stick around. I've got some really, really cool guests lined up. I'm going to list them off for you. Some big time guests, some new to the show. And just going to tease that a little bit. Got to stick around till the end for that. Let's get right into it. Look, this is this is just an exercise, and I don't feel like I should have to start with a disclaimer, but I will, because every time I do a mock draft, and I do hundreds of these, it's so much fun. And the way that my brain operates, if you've been watching the show for a while, you probably are getting used to this, is I come from a very analytical place, right? Maybe it's the Libra in me. I'm always looking at both sides, trying to balance things out. I always thought, I missed my calling. I should have been an attorney because I would have been able to see the other argument and anticipate it and be able to debate it. Surprisingly enough, I was not on debate team in high school or college. I just went straight into broadcasting. But it's one of those things that I think is lacking today in sports broadcasting is everybody feels like, and it's that genre of television that's now, going on 10 years probably, where it's, pro versus con, and devil versus angel, and yin versus yang, and devil's advocate type of stuff, where one person takes one really extreme example or viewpoint, and the other one takes another one, and they argue, and it's so angry, and it's why I haven't watched ESPN or Fox programming outside of just live sports for the last 5 or 6 years. I can't stand that stuff. It gives me anxiety, and I think it's contrived. It's fake, right? It's not that those two co-hosts wake up every day and just happen to think differently on every single subject that comes along. They go through it all and they plan it out. They rehearse it. It's produced, but it's bred this generation of people that just think that way and are wired that way. And so I will post a harmless mock draft because, again, my process is, what if they did it this way? What if they did it this way? What if they went quarterback first? What if they trade down? What if they trade up? I want to be prepared for any scenario, because in another life, if a genie popped out of a bottle and gave me 3 wishes, the first one would be, I want to be GM of an NFL football team, right? Miss my calling. But just, I want to try and figure out how they think. So doing things like this are fun. But every time I do a mock draft, this is the point I'm trying to get to. Sometimes I get to it quicker than others. Not today. It doesn't matter what I post when it comes to a mock draft. Before the draft's even done, people will jump in. That's a dumb pick. That's a terrible pick. You need to take this guy. You need to take that guy. Let's have some fun with this, okay? So Michael Thompson, who's been on the show, great draft analyst for 12th Man Rising. He and I have become friends, and we text almost every day. And it's stuff like this. Scenarios. What if they trade down? What if they trade up? And we were talking about Michigan players. And in particular, I mentioned a player that I'd watched on tape that I liked. And he said he didn't even directly challenge me to do this. He just said something that sparked the thought. And coming off the combine, I kind of was thinking the same thing over the weekend. So I did it. I went to PFF first. Didn't like how their big board fell. So I went to PFN. This is what I came up with. Let's just throw it up there because this is fun. Dun, 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 dun. So I traded down. This is my favorite trade down. Almost every single mock, just to give you the background here. Almost every single mock I do, I start off with this trade down because there's just so many players that I like in the second round range. And of course, the Seahawks don't have a second round pick this year. Traded for Leonard Williams. Lots of discussion around that. Now the Seahawks have cleared, $38 million in salary cap space with yesterday's moves. That, Leonard, there have been reports that both sides are trying to get together on a new deal before free agency starts so that second round pick still has some value. But man, we're going to miss it on draft day because there's a lot to talk about how this draft isn't very deep, but I sure like the top 100. And right now the Seahawks have 3 picks in the top 80. I want more. And this was a way to do it. So I've got it in my notes here. It's a Green Bay trade. Seahawks would give Green Bay 16 and 78. Wait, why are we trading away 2 picks? I'll tell you. We get 3 picks in return. 25, 58, which is the 26th pick in the second round, and 91 back. So we move back in the first round and in the third round. We basically do a pick swap in the third round, move down a little bit in order to get 58. Now, the reason this works is it is an almost precise match on the Rich Hill trade value chart, which is based on actual draft data. Actual trades. The Jimmy Johnson chart is still used by some teams around the league as sort of a starting point or a guideline. But the Rich Hill took the Jimmy Johnson chart idea and actually plugged in real trades over the last, I don't know what the time period is, but this chart has existed for 10 years. And it comes within 1 point in value in order to get this done. You know what? When I talk mock drafts with a lot of you, some of you will say, I really want him to move down a few spots in the first round so we can pick up a second round pick. Well, it's not that easy. If you look at those trade charts, and Draft Tech has them all. They have the Jimmy Johnson and the Rich Hill. You can just Google Rich Hill trade value chart. You'll see that to get a second round pick, you have to move almost to the very end of the first round. So to do something a little more creative like this, get you in there with a kind of a, what is this, 9 picks to move back? Here's what I came up with. So Chris Jenkins is, by most big boards, I understand this, a little bit of a reach. There wasn't a perfect match for a Michigan player at 25 that wouldn't be considered a little bit of a reach. But Jenkins, I like him even more after the combine than I did before. There wasn't a lot of production on the field, not a lot of sacks or tackles for loss, but he's known as the mutant because he's so athletic. He blew up testing at the combine. And then I went back and watched his tape. And it's much, much better than I expected to see. Really good hand usage. He's got long arms, 34-inch arms. He's taking on double teams. He's eating up a lot of blocks so that the other guys can do their work. You see the quickness on tape. He doesn't have ideal girth in his lower half. He'd probably be a rotational player, but a guy that, Lance Zierlein of NFL.com has him rated as a guy that might start out as a backup, but will become a plus starter in the league. He would fit right in initially. But here's the other thing about it. He is, and many of the guys on this list, he's one of their leaders, one of their captains. He is a legendary culture-setting type leader, and there's value in that. Number 58, Junior Colson. This has been one of the most popular mock draft targets for all of you and anyone doing mock drafts. Seahawks need linebackers. They have none under contract right now outside of Drake Nugent. Drake Nugent. See, I'm thinking Michigan. Drake Thomas. Drake Nugent is a center for Michigan, who is not in this draft, but that's just what's on my mind right now. Colson, one of the youngest players in the draft, just a physical freak, sideline to sideline. He's got size, speed, and he's still a developing player. And just a really hard worker, perfect locker room guy. Speaking of which, number 78, a smaller corner might not make sense until you start to learn more about Mike Sainristil. Had a good combine. Again, one of those culture setters, captain of the team, known as a legendary type leader. Can play the slot. Very, very explosive short area quickness, former wide receiver, great instincts, would be able to allow. I know that Macdonald used Kyle Hamilton kind of as a big slot, but he has said time and time again, he's going to mold what he does defensively to the personnel. And a guy like Sainristil could just provide depth. He can play on the outside, but I think would be best on the inside in nickel packages and just be another great leader and allow Witherspoon. Because a lot of you have just assumed that Witherspoon will be that Hamilton role, kind of like he was his rookie year. Play a little bit of outside, kick inside in nickel packages. I wonder if Mike Macdonald might see more of Marlon Humphrey in Witherspoon and want to keep him outside and lock guys down. 91, Zach Zinter, coming off the broken leg against Ohio State. All reports are that he's progressing nicely. If he hadn't gotten hurt, he probably isn't there at 91. But an outstanding, if he were 100% healthy, he'd be drafted as a plug and play guard. He might be a guy you have to sit on a little bit. He played right guard at Michigan, but he's so physical and athletic. I think he could play either side. He would certainly push Anthony Bradford once he's healthy. 119, A.J. Barner. Seahawks have some tight end needs, don't they? Again, after releasing Will Dissly yesterday, the only person that they have under contract at the tight end position is Brady Russell, who they picked up from the Eagles early last year. And he's an exclusive rights free agent, so he's only under contract for a few more days. And then that leaves Tyler Mabry, who was signed to a futures contract again, as the only tight end on the roster. A.J. Barner, typical Michigan tight end, solid enough blocker, solid enough in the pass game, good size, athletic enough. At 119, he's the kind of tight end you usually end up with. 151, Cornelius Johnson here. I was just kind of looking for value, a Michigan player that was ranked around this spot. Some of the other guys would be a little bit more of a reach. Thought about going with Drake Nugent, but I think he's a little bit undersized at center, and I still like Olu Oluwatimi from Michigan, drafted in the 5th round last year. But Johnson's a big outside receiver, 6'3", tested well at the combine. Again, just more depth at receiver. At some point, they're going to move on from Tyler Lockett. Does Jackson Smith and Jigba move outside then, or does he stay in the slot? Cornelius Johnson would give them another outside option. A good size, speed combination there. 194, Trevor Keegan. I think this is great value. Started at left guard, which is probably the biggest need on the Seahawks offensive line right now, because as of today, Damian Lewis, scheduled for unrestricted free agency, probably going to get paid, might be priced out of the Seahawks budget. And this guy started for the last 3 years at Michigan at left guard. Interestingly enough, on their official website at the University of Michigan Athletic Department, he is listed as a tackle. I mean, he's 6'6", 315, good length, mauler in the run game. The book on him is, again, from Lance Zierlein, might struggle a little bit with speed guys, which is why he probably doesn't fit at the outside. But you go watch the tape, and he looks like a starting NFL guard at left guard. Certainly could give you quality depth in the 6th round, and at that size and length, possibly could, in a pinch, play some tackle for you as well. And then one of my draft crushes that I don't think is getting enough love. He's available in the 7th round all day long on PFN. PFF, you kind of have to grab him by the 5th. Braden McGregor, edge out of Michigan. I was surprised that he measured with only 32.5-inch arms at the combine, because on tape, he looks like, it reminds me of when I watched Max Crosby for the first time on tape from Eastern Michigan. Just his arms look like they're down to his knees. Very rangy, long edge, tall, athletic, quick get off. Is he physical enough? I don't know. But in the 7th round, just a guy with some upside. He moves well enough. He can drop into coverage. Really, really interesting edge player from Michigan that I think is getting lost in the shuffle a little bit from all those guys that they have there. What would you think? I mean, it's a ridiculous notion, right? But is it? It's conceivable. From the very first moment that Pete Carroll was fired and John Schneider had his first press conference, what did he talk about? Culture. That he had been tasked by ownership to maintain a positive culture. Mike Macdonald was hired from one of the organizations in the league known best for their culture. And Mike Macdonald just feels like that kind of guy. Michigan, culture. Harbaugh, culture. The guys on this list are proven players at a high level, won a national championship, stuck together. Many of them could have come out in the draft last year, chose to go back again. They're all leaders. So it's conceivable to think that, well, let me put it this way. I don't think there's any way the Seahawks go through the entire 7 rounds of the draft coming up next month and don't take at least one Michigan player. The point of this exercise wasn't just to have fun, but also there's some fits here, right? Like, again, Jenkins might be a reach at 25, but is he? I've seen him in some 1st-round mocks. It all depends on how much a team likes a player, how much they think he fits, and do they think he'll be available when it comes around again, right? Colson's the guy that, he's such a logical fit, but you got to have a 2nd-round pick if you want a shot at him, I think. I don't think he's going to be there in the 3rd. I know positional value of linebackers has fallen off in the last couple of years. Teams, realize you can get him a little bit later. There's a bunch of them in free agency this year. Not all of them are going to be expensive. But Colson just feels like, especially with his youth and upside and what he's done on the field already, playing as a true freshman for Mike Macdonald 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now, I guess. That one would make a lot of sense, but you gotta figure out a way to pick up a 2nd-round pick. Zinter, I think, is a starter day one if he's healthy. Barner's in the tight end rotation. Johnson is a good depth piece. Like, I don't think, here's what I would say, my last point about this. I don't think you can take any of these 8 picks in a vacuum and say that they don't make sense. Like, if the Seahawks were to trade down, take Jenkins at 25, and then 7 other players not from Michigan, maybe not everybody would love the pick. Everyone has their favorites. Oh, they should have taken, whoever. Right? Johnny Newton, assuming Johnny Newton and Byron Murphy were gone, I'm sure a bunch of Seahawks fans would think that Tavondre Sweat should have been the pick at 25, even though I would say that that's a reach. I think if the Seahawks took someone else in the 1st round, but took Junior Colson in the 2nd round with the pick that they gained by trading down, universal acceptance of that pick. Sainer still might get some head shakes at 78 until you see the plan for him in the slot and you learn about him. He is, the guy, and you can never have too many corners. Zinter at 91, I think, would be a standing ovation from Seahawk fans, right? It would sound like this. Pick number 91, the 2024 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks select guard Zach Zinter, Michigan. That's what it would be like. Barner at 119, I think would be kind of a ho-hum pick, but hey, we need a tight end. He's had some injuries at Michigan, or I think maybe he would have gone a little higher. Cornelius Johnson at 151, a receiver in the 5th round. Okay, I think that would be sort of a ho-hum pick as well. Keegan McGregor, when you get later like that, if it's all non-Michigan players up until that point, and then you grab a guy in the 6th or 7th round, okay, it's a guy he's familiar with. That makes sense. So anyway, that's what I wanted to do today. It was fun for me. Was it fun for you? Be honest with me. What do you like? What do you don't like about it? I've played around. What kind of inspired this as well, back when I was writing for 12th Man Rising years ago, with my buddy Keith Myers, I did there was a year when the Huskies had a bunch of guys coming out. I think it was the year Greg Gaines and Taylor Rapp came out. Is that the same year that, he was the tight end that went to the Bengals, Drew Sample. I think I'm getting that right. I wrote an all Husky mock draft too that fit at the time. They didn't take any of them, but it fit. And that was kind of fun for me. I played around with one where they take Huskies and Wolverines exclusively. That one didn't fall as well, but I'll tell you what, I'll throw that one after this video gets some traction. I'll throw that one on Twitter just to show you. But here's the challenge. One of you has to then ask for it on Twitter. Hey, just watch your episode. Show us that other one. I promised you before I will go that I would kind of go through a little bit and give you an idea of some guests that have agreed to be on the show coming up, some things that you can look forward to. Because I'm really excited about some of these. It's that time of year. I've talked about this before, but during the season, you're looking back at the last game. You're looking forward to the next game. That guests are usually reserved for, previewing the next game, talking to people from the other side. This is the time of year where I want opinions and input, and you seem to enjoy that as well. So here are just a few examples. Michael Thompson will be on the show with me in the coming weeks. We will do dueling mock drafts as we did last year. Christian Capel of On Montlake, who does such a great job covering the Huskies, has agreed to come on. I want to talk to him about Michael Penix and those other draft prospects from the Huskies that may fit in Seattle. And then his experience being around Ryan Grubb as well. Sanjit T, who does such a great job on the Football Scout channel, breaking down video. I want to talk to him about some of his favorite draft prospects. A couple of the best draft analysts around. Shane Hallam has agreed to come on, been following his work for a long time. Can't wait to talk to him. Also, Emery Hunt, who was on last year from CBS Sports. He'll be on to talk draft as well. Brett Coleman, really excited about this one. I'm sure you've seen his work, is going to take time out of his busy schedule at the end of March to talk draft with me. Going to focus mostly in the offensive line with him. That's really his wheelhouse. That's how I discovered him. And then, the usuals, right? We're going to have the guys on from the Seahawkers podcast and Jackson Bevins. He and I are trying to figure out our schedules again, get him on the show soon as well. So lots and lots and lots to look forward to on the show. That's going to do it for today. Let me know what you think in the comments, as always. And follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever and ask for that other bonus mock draft with some Huskies mixed in. Until next time, forever and always, go Hawks. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. See you next time.